I like to get guests on the show that sometimes not from bands. E.g., I've had physiotherapists for metal artists. I've had dark arts merch companies on the show. And I'm very excited that I've got my first comedian on the show. I'm joined by Luke Severeid. How are you, Luke?
Good, man. First one. Interesting.
First, yeah,
You're
the
cracking
first
the seal.
comedian.
All right. Well, I better live up to the non-existent hype.
So whereabouts in the world are you? In Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Is it starting to turn autumnal now there?
Turn what?
Well, you call it fall, don't you? Is it starting to turn fall? Like
Oh, autumn. Yeah. We call it fall because we don't like extra syllables. Yeah, autumn has too many U's in it, so we drop that.
That's right.
Yeah, man. It's just starting. This is my first East Coast fall. I've
Okay.
been kind of on the West Coast of the U.S. For most of my life, so yeah, man. The leaves are starting to do what they're doing, and I'm probably going to try to go hike something today just because it's
Nice.
nice to when the sun's out and take advantage of that before winter decides to show up and make everything unpleasant.
So where are you originally from then?
Washington State.
Washington State, right? So another
Yeah.
beautiful area of the world.
Yeah, man. I definitely take it for granted. The having like Mount Rainier and the Cascades just so nearby all the time. You just go like, that's whatever. But like now that I'm away from it and
Yeah.
you just become more aware of how much the rest of the country doesn't have like just a huge mountain that just shows up on
Yeah.
occasion to be like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're insignificant. And you're like, yes, I do. Thank you
And,
for the
and
reminder.
and obviously Pittsburgh's quite an industrial place, so it must be a bit of a culture shock, right?
A little bit. I think it used to be industrial, and it's kind of that the steel industry is kind of died out here.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of not too much. It feels like a very lateral move to an extent from Washington to Pittsburgh
Yeah.
because it's a bit more purple, as in
Right.
like mixed between Republican and Democrat
Yeah. Of course.
than Washington. Well, at least but the cities are very much more blue, and then you get right outside the city, it gets red. There's so many
Yeah.
political signs.
Well, I've got
Uh,
a few questions to. We'll go into that a little bit later. But obviously, is it Pittsburgh? You have a lot of Amish hanging around, or is that Pennsylvania in general?
uh, Areas, and I haven't gone on a drive to find them. I've been
I've
too
seen them
busy
on the
working
side of
on
the
other
road
things.
before with a little horse and cart. Like you don't look at them.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's
And
like-
for some reason, they hate mustaches
yeah.
and electricity. I don't get it.
No good for you or me. So
Yeah.
the reason you're on the show, the reason I want to get you on this is because of your love of rock and metal. How does rock and metal and comedy go hand in hand for you with from your opinion? Is there a lot to chew on?
It's just the yelling. I mean, it's not a lot to chew on. It just boils down to me being like, can I just be loud? Like, I was that little kid who wanted to just yell on the playground the whole time, and that just be what we did for recess, like just
Right.
running around and acting like a maniac because I just was, a little chaos kid.
Yeah.
And then like first time I heard metal music, I was like, oh, that's what's already here. So,
That's for you. Because
and
I love your sketches about like things like the Christian metal one and how metal fans judge each other. I love that. I relate to that so much. So there's a lot of cohesion there.
yeah, well, it's these are all of these bits are things that I've only started to recently write about
Right.
because metalheads there's a lot of us especially in Washington State. Let me rephrase that. There's a lot of metalheads everywhere,
Mm.
but in a specific stand-up comedy show room there's probably five
Right.
at any given moment in time.
Sure.
So that is not the audience that I should be trying to appease. You don't want to be um, trying to placate and make happy the small percentage of the audience. So
Of course.
a lot of my jokes and also the aggression that comes across with metal music or even jokes about it, if I'm stylistically borrowing from that, can alienate audiences. So it took a while, and just kind of by happenstance, I sort of was able to figure out a way to I needed to explain to non-metalhead audiences why I like metal music so that they would go with me when I did other things
Right.
on it.
Yeah.
So all of these subjects are just things that have kind of been in the back of my mind for a really long time that I just hadn't actually fully like fleshed out into joke form.
Right. Okay. Do you find you've got these days because of you know especially things like your Instagram and stuff like that. Do you find that more metal fans are showing up to your shows?
Mhm. And I mean, I'm gathering the following, and the largest bucket that I'm pulling from for my audiences are metalheads, and also that too on marketing too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm kind of presenting myself as like stand up that's metal as fuck,
Yeah.
or just
Yeah.
easy. You got to get the little catchphrase. Another one that's probably not gonna wouldn't work on a poster, but or a as a on an ad, but it makes me laugh to be like, oh, I'm a one man a cappella metal band.
Yeah.
Like,
I like it. I like it.
yeah, I'm the
So,
bass player that decided to get on the mic
well,
instead.
did you? I was gonna say, were you? Are you a musician? Have you played anything? Have you played in
Yeah,
a band
yeah.
before?
Yeah, not successfully. I mean, it was just local stuff in Washington. There's not a vibrant music scene in Washington as much as there used to be. No, like not trying to slam
Yeah, of
anyone who's there, because there's a
course.
bunch of bands and artists that are trying, but just the I think given like the way the market is there, like it's just there's not you need a lot of like DIY spaces and smaller venues that can do stuff, and there's not nearly as many there as there used to be a couple decades
Yeah,
ago.
I understand. So you said it as a kid that kind of like you heard metal for the first time. What got you into metal? When was that moment, and what bands were they?
I always love explaining this because metalheads are so judgmental that like unless it's just the coolest thing that fits with their generational perception of what is acceptable,
Yeah,
you're a
yeah,
poser. So I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
love it, you guys. Like, and in the joke I say, like, we're all listening to adults pretending to be monster men. Like, shut up. Like,
Yeah.
uh, I was raised pretty religious. Didn't really have a lot of music in the house growing up. Nice parents, but just it wasn't their thing. And I'm just kind of like, I'm ADHD. I want some sort of dopamine. Music's never playing. But I remember between seventh and eighth grade, I was at a Christian summer camp thing, and someone played Nine Inch Nails, and that's the first time I heard like some music that had a little bit of bite to it. And I know Nine Inch Nails isn't metal, but that was kind of like the lead in me being
Sure.
like, oh, music can go in this way and say like kind of dark things.
Mm,
And then I remember I got the Columbia Music House, where you're able to just order a bunch of CDs for like five
yeah,
cents. And I remember I got like Cold Chamber's first
yeah,
album,
yeah.
and that was fun. It made me laugh that someone's yelling about big
Big
truck,
truck.
like big truck, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then pretty soon after that, I ran into Slipknot's,
Mhm.
well, not their first album, but like first Roadrunner record, and
Yeah,
like the joke. If I talk about Double Kick, I'm pretty much like I'm referencing the intro of that album when like
yeah.
Sick when it like kicks in.
Mhm.
That was probably like the first, moment where I was like, oh, like double kick and just, and you're like,
Yeah.
yes, please and thank you.
So, who would be on your Mount Rushmore of rock and metal? Those four faces are
Ooh.
just, are the fucking nuts. The guys that really stand out for you, who are like, fuck, they're the guys. Just sort of
Uh,
one member from each band. It could be an influence. It could be whatever you want.
oh man. Well, I'd have to say, like, probably first and foremost, the bass player Mudvayne, because that's the guy that made me want to play bass. LD50, I think it Ryan, I forget his last name.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. Yeah, I think that's right.
and I should clarify things. And this is probably not this isn't going to make me make fans, but like I feel it is odd how much we elevate artists.
Mhm. Okay.
Like if you're good at playing guitar, you're good at singing, you're good at bass, you're good at drums. Also, your opinions on everything are here
Hmm.
then, and you're like, no, man, they're just good at the one thing maybe.
Yeah.
And because I also, you're a big fan of a band, and then they break up, and then you're just kind of like,
Mm.
and then I think every metalhead had a moment where they research an artist that they like and then just go, oh, that sucks. I wish I hadn't done that. Uh, okay. So
Go on.
all
Okay.
that to
We digress. Go on. Go on.
yeah. No, no, it's sorry, man. This
This is
is
good.
how my brain works.
It was good.
So I think Ryan from Mudvayne. I love Keith Buckley's vocals.
Okay.
And then let's see, guitar.
Doesn't
Who
have
would
to be.
I?
Doesn't have to be a band. It can be just be four singers. It can be four drummers. Whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
So
Vinnie Paul from Pantera.
yeah.
I mean, that was like one of the first like like I mean Joey and Slipknot doing his thing, but like in hindsight, just being like, all right, it's good, but like Vinnie Paul just did
Sure.
some really really cool
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
honestly, Dimebag, like if Dimebag, like Damage Plan didn't really do it for me that much, but like a
No.
lot of the things that Pantera had going on, where I was just
Mm.
like, it is too bad that Dimebag wasn't able to stick around and then eventually make music that we didn't like.
What do you think to the Pantera reunion? Are you up for that?
I don't know, man. I kind of tapped out on Phil a while ago.
Mm. Mm.
He's one of those guys that I'm like, oh, that's a hero, and then like later I just kind of learn more about him. I'm like,
I know.
dude,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
all
yeah.
right, man.
Yeah,
And
okay.
that has kind of, and I apologize if your audience isn't stoked on that, but that is also kind of the
No.
weird as an ex-religious person. It's strange to see these things we elevate and then just go, oh, this is just humanity. Like
Mm.
they're imperfect people.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. So
but
can
it
I
is. Oh,
go
go
on?
ahead.
So I was going to ask because you said about ex-religious, you said you were. How did you have you left it full time? What was the cutoff? Was it music that got you to that? Was it other things that made you see not see the light, but see the light, if you know what I mean?
See the darkness.
Yeah.
uh, well, I mean, my upbringing, fairly sheltered, and church group was like one of my main social circles, and it was just
Mm.
kind of in my teens. Like metal, honestly, yeah, music was kind of a divisive moment to a light extent. Is that I remember I was like at a Wednesday night like youth group thing, and then the youth pastor was just being a like I was showing someone new headphones that I had and just be like, "Oh, check this out." I remember it was Soulfly's "Primitive"
Yeah,
album,
class.
and I was showing my buddy Gabe a thing, and then the youth pastor just like snapped at me and just like did the whole like just dick checked me on you're like you need to put this away, dude. Like blah blah blah. We're here for this, and I was just and then like my parents are picking me up, and I'm like, I'm never coming
Mm.
back here again. I was
Mm.
already kind of like these are nonsense stories,
Yeah,
but I just like to hang out and see my friends. And ever since then, and then also it's a very easy archetype or personality trait to just go like to be the anti-church
sure,
teenager because that
sure.
testosterone's fresh. So you're like, let it rip.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Funny.
yeah.
So that was the gateway out kind of thing for you.
To an extent. Yeah. It's also like just reading any other books.
Mm.
Like it just like
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a I wish I wasn't as much of an angry atheist as I am, but at least in America,
Yeah.
the religious folk are really trying to make everyone cosplay with
Oh
them,
yeah.
and that makes me go, "Hey, no,
Handmaid's Tale, man. Handmaid's Tale. It's all gonna happen. You know,
yeah."
that's
I
the
mean,
concern.
one political party seems like they think that's not a terrible idea,
Yeah,
and
I
that's
know.
interesting.
Well, I'm going to get back to that. And I promised you I would go back to that because I want to know more of your opinion on that. But a couple of funny questions here. Okay, what band do you think would be the funniest to have a night out with? What band do you think you'd be like? Yeah, do you drink, Luke?
I quit drinking almost
Okay,
2 years
fair
ago,
enough.
honestly.
Okay, so either them days or even these days without the drink, who do you think you'd have a better night out with?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's a bummer because it is like that's very much like a when you're in your drinking
Yeah, of
because it
course.
is like because my perception now of what would be a good night is like doing a show and then just being able to hang out and decompress after a show
Right.
as
Yeah.
opposed to what it used to be where you're like we did a show, we are
Yeah.
gods, and then just
Yeah.
getting hammered.
Yeah.
um Honestly, man, I do wish I could have, if it doesn't have to be a current thing, if it could have been a past thing, I think it would have been fun as fuck to hang out with every time I die after a
Yeah.
show because those dudes just seem like that's probably also part of why they broke up is
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, we've been partying for several
Yeah.
decades
Yeah. Yeah. For
nonstop.
sure. So just on that one, what was the reason for just quitting the alcohol? Was it a personal thing? Was it a health thing? Wine
It
thing?
was it was I was tired of my tits. I mean,
Well, it's a health
that's
thing.
not yeah, it was yeah, let's call it health. It was vanity. Also, like, I mean, just the way my brain chemistry is that like it made my depression stronger. And I'm
Right.
like, all right. And I do have some jokes on stage about this, but I just kind of go like, given this is my job and I'm like touring all the time, and with comedy, a lot of times you don't get paid the best on certain shows, but you get free drinks
Right.
and then afterwards people give you drinks, and I was just kind of realizing that I'm like I'm drinking like 5 to 6 nights a week, I'm drinking 7 to 8 loaves of bread. Like,
Right.
what are
Yeah.
we
That's it.
like? All
Yeah.
right,
That's
man.
a
So
lot.
where did this B cup come
Yeah.
from?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. That's
Like,
it. You feel better for it now?
I mean, I'm still the age I am, so my body's still just like, yeah, we've been decaying the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, not having hangovers is nice, but I do miss the social lubricant aspect of
Mm.
drinking because it's something to do while you're talking to people, and it always takes a little bit of the
Edge off.
second guessing yourself. Yeah, it takes the edge off. I was in New York City for a bunch of shows a couple of weeks ago, and on a show that I hanging out at a space like on a show that I wasn't on, and a bunch of great comics, and I'm like, wow,
Mm.
if I could just have a beer or two, I would be so much more just like pulled
Yeah.
back. But it's like, all right, that's just the trade off.
Did you ever drink before a show
Oh yeah, but never
to
never
excess?
excessively. Not
Yeah.
before. I mean, I've had a couple shows that I was like self-producing back in Washington years ago where I was like, "Ooh, we got hammered because the
Yeah.
venue just kept feeding me stuff." But yeah, I would drink a little bit beforehand on occasion because it also just loosens you up and makes you just be like, all right, I can deal with these
Yeah.
turds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
is swearing an
That's
issue? I've
fine.
been
Please
okay.
fucking go for it, mate.
All right.
There you go. Now,
Shit
which,
balls.
which band? Okay, here's a funny one. Which band wouldn't you want in your audience?
Oh, you're trying to start shit?
No, 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 no. I just thought, for me, I'm wearing a dog throwing t-shirt. So I just thought off the back of my you were a black metal band in the audience, all being sad and depressed, probably wouldn't be the ideal audience for you. But I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, do you think anyone else?
Well, I mean, I can't think of like I'm not gonna like name names necessarily, but it
No, of
is
course.
kind of like the I think metal music is fantastic and it's my favorite, but it's also so absurd. And if you're not able to acknowledge the absurdity of it, I think you're a bummer.
Mm.
Like if it is like this changed my life, cool, but like you still know it's a guy who's mostly sounding like he's farting out of his mouth the whole album.
Yeah, yeah,
Like I understand that it like it paired well with the dopamine at that stage in your life and it helped you get through some stuff, because that's another thing too is a lot of metalheads don't talk about is that like it is the soundtrack to the emotional like processing that they're doing at that point in time, or it's the
mm,
soundtrack to friendship or a certain period of time.
of course.
Really, I just don't like it when people can't take a fucking joke. Like
Yeah. Yeah,
we're just like, yeah, because that's literally and clearly that's why I'm not in bands. I'm a comedian because I'm
yeah,
like my god is humor. Like it
yeah,
doesn't get a laugh. Like that's the main goal, as opposed to being like that was so fucking metal what we
yeah,
did there, dude. We were
yeah, yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
ugh. And you're like, all right, well, here's your 4 drink tickets to split amongst all 6 of you.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it. I've been there myself. Now, not too
Yeah.
dissimilar to musicians, you also play late nights, clubs, sweaty clubs, probably some nice clubs on that jazz. Obviously, you did drink, there's drinks involved if you want it to be. It's similar to music, but unlike musicians where they're well rehearsed, they know that they just play their guitar, their drums, the show's finished. Usually they get cheered. You guys, as a comedian, it must be hard. You judge fast, you could be heckled. How do you approach gigs? How do you approach your shows? Because it's the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's also like it's unknown technically, but these are also things that I've been practicing for years.
Sure. No, sure, sure, sure.
Like there's even if it's not a specific joke where like set up punchline, there is just a general way of interacting. Like the longer I do this, the more it is I realize that it's just a conversation I'm having at an audience.
Yeah.
And you know how to have a conversation. It's just this is a one-on-one as opposed to one versus,
Yeah.
20 to 5,000 or whatever the
Mm,
amount is.
yeah.
And you just need to figure out how to properly calibrate. And each comedian figures out a different way to do that. Like, what's the opener? It's good to watch the show as it's going on, leading up to your set, so you can get a feel for the kind of response that audience gives.
Hmm.
I really like to see the audience as an instrument.
Hmm.
Because you were saying like, bands, they get to practice
Yeah.
beforehand and they go on
Yeah.
stage, but like with comedians, it's like, nah, man, my practice is what is happening as I'm doing it,
Yeah, I
like
get you.
in the moment.
So your heckler could be a broken string.
Yeah. Yeah,
Simply.
it's that is what it is. I mean, like maybe not as hopefully not as detrimental as a broken string
No, no, no.
during a song, but it is very it's something throwing you off, and then you have to address it while not breaking your own
Yeah, that
momentum.
must be tough, man. That's a skill and a half. That I mean, what's the worst thing? You get a heckler, you get thrown off your course, but you got to answer them, but then you got to get back on course. How do you handle that?
I mean, it's just an amplified version of being in a group conversation and then
Mm,
someone interrupting you, and you go,
true.
"Hey, I was talking.
Mm,
Everyone was listening to me talk.
hmm.
What are you doing?"
Yeah,
And but there's so many different ways to navigate that. But I've found I'm not perfect at it by any means, and I of course always can use more and more practice, but just like I have a hard time not overly aggressively telling someone to be quiet because it's drunk people. That's another thing too,
yeah,
is that the
that's it.
longer I don't drink, the more I'm just like hecklers at shows are people that are usually like 4 or 5 drinks deep and they didn't have dinner. So they're just it's like chastising a third grader where
That
you're
is
like,
so. That is so true. That is so true. But I mean, have you ever accepted defeat on a heckler and gone, oh, fuck him, or do you fucking nail him to the wall? How do you handle it like that?
I used to be a lot angrier and really try to like lean in and be mean. But it's like I like I've said this a couple times where it's just like I like you see the actual hate I have in my heart, and that's not
That's it.
conducive to the
Right.
rest of me, like of me having it, because a lot of what a comedian does is like convince a group of strangers to want to be happy because they're talking.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
I to address someone go, "Hey dude, shut the fuck
Yeah. Yeah.
up,"
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that makes it hard for me to be like, "So I'm an
Yeah.
uncle."
Yeah. 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 There we
Like it
go. Yeah.
doesn't,
Yeah. Of
it's a
course.
hard gear to shift. So, but
Yeah.
I've never like accepted defeat, I guess. I mean, I've had shows where I'm like, "Oh, I'm leaving after my set because
Sure.
this audience member got real mad at me and they know the venue." And I'm like, "This isn't worth my time hanging out here." And
I understand. I
um
understand.
yeah, it's just a weird thing to navigate.
So, are you always thinking of sketches and skits? I mean, like a guitarist or lyricist, do you wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, or it's an inappropriate time that you've got to try and get something down or something? And how do you approach it? Do you have a time when you sit down and focus, or are you can't like you say you're going for a little stroll this afternoon? Will
Uh,
the engine room be working at that time?
it's usually when other activities are taking place. It's like hanging out with people, bouncing off, or like out hiking, or at the gym. That I really like to do that. Is I don't drink, but I'm definitely still a non-sober person. I like me some cannabis,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
uh, because it just puts a little wiggle in my waggle and makes
yeah,
me just kind of
yeah. You need something.
uh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. So that's usually what the process is. I do try to write. I try to write, but that is not like where the real work happens. That's just kind of like laying down, like that's just planting seeds that might turn into something later. Because
mm,
the way my process is very much like I have to verbalize it. I have to act it out.
yeah,
Because if I write something down and then I recite that, my eyes are not like focused. I'm kind of like remembering a thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah, and it's just taken me years to realize like, oh, that is the process. Instead of just being like, I need to write, I need to do this. You're like, yeah, yeah, but the real work happens when I get out of my own way is when the lines show up. A lot of my best lines in any of my jokes are a byproduct of me just doing 2/3 of a joke that is done, and then the last third just shows up
yeah,
because I had the a fraction of the idea, like a part of that idea a week ago, and then it just showed up in a new way, and I go, okay.
yeah, yeah. Nice. And do you actually find yourself? Do you actually rehearse it in the car, or when you're walking, or in front of the mirror, in the bathroom, in the shower? Do you constantly go through a set in your head? Sorry, if I'm going too far behind the curtain, Luke, just tell me, mate.
Oh no, you're good, man. I hope someone finds this at least a little entertaining.
Yeah, no, sure.
Um, because I try to do that, but I definitely have ADHD and I'm a pothead and I'm not medicated right now outside of the self medication that
Right.
I smoke. So like it's harder to do that, but it is a thing that I do. And usually, like I said, it's like the stage is where the real practice. If I can have a full weekend of shows or a full run of shows and really like do the groove up there, but I do try to run my jokes in, on the way to a show or when I'm out and walking, but
Yeah,
that's hard to do, especially when you're like, hey, I have an hour plus of jokes I want to
yeah,
run through. Am I just going
yeah,
to walk going ba 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 the
yeah.
other day? But yeah, like that's
How annoying is it when someone says, you're a comedian, tell me a joke? That must piss you off, right?
it doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to. I don't think people like comedians as much as they used to.
Right.
I
Okay.
used
Yeah.
I used to get it all the time, and now when someone finds out I'm a comedian, it's usually like, oh, okay. And I'm like, all right. I used to be a rock star, and now like, all right,
Don't
cool.
ask anymore. It's like these are like this is more than just one liners. It's a story, man. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
this is probably for my benefit, but I want to ask it for all my listeners as well. Okay. Now, if you see what I mean when I say my benefit, you'll see where I'm coming from. But for anyone, have you got any advice for someone who's willing to pick up a mic and do something as crazy as going on stage and trying to make some laugh? What advice would you give them or me?
Be okay with failing.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Yeah, it's at the core of it is that like you're not gonna die. I mean, you're gonna
Gonna
die.
die.
This is not the reason you're gonna die,
Yeah, yeah,
unless you
yeah,
do it
yeah,
really
yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Like honestly, man, if you're that bad at comedy that someone kills you, like, ugh. No,
Yeah,
okay.
that's right.
No, it's very easy to build it up in your head as something, and really, it's you fail forward.
Mm,
Like as long as you record yourself or do something so that you can go back to the tape and actually analyze what you do. Because I always
yeah,
think a set is never as good as you think it was or as bad as you think it was. It's always somewhere in the middle.
mm,
And if you have the ability to pay attention and critique yourself and see where the spots are that need improvement, and also that's a skill set in and of itself that needs to be improved
yeah.
through the process. But yeah, man, it's you're learning to swim. You just got to go get
Mm,
wet,
of
dude.
of course. Do you remember your first show? And how many hundred of shows was it ago?
I lost track of that
Really?
number, but I mean, I'm 12 years deep now, and I've probably
Wow.
thousands and thousands of shows, or at least sets. I mean, a lot, like you can't call an open mic a show,
Yeah,
but
sure. But do you remember
it's a
was
rep.
your first show or was it an open mic event, your
Yeah,
first? So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it was an
How
open
was
mic.
that walking onto that?
It was great. It was the one of the best highs I've ever had.
Awesome.
I was pumped on a Monday
Yeah.
night. Did not
Yeah.
sleep well that evening. Work
Awesome.
was tiring the next day, but for a good reason. Yeah, I remember I got good laughs like where I thought I was going to. I went off scripts, and like that's the
Yeah.
thing too, to circle back to the heckler stuff, is that I spent so long very early on being so worried about like a heckler because we build this up in our head,
Sure.
and also as an audience you go, oh, that would be so insane because everyone is
Yeah.
terrified of public speaking, and then to have your script interrupted.
Mm,
But like even early on, I was dealing with people just drunkenly like going blah blah blah, and you go blah blah blah,
yeah.
and then you go back to the thing you're saying, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
later I was like, oh, that's what dealing with a heckler is.
That's what it's about. Interesting. Right. So I asked earlier about your musical influences, but what about your comedy influences?
Okay, Doug Stanhope was the first comedian that I watched that made me like a fan of stand-up comedy because
Okay.
he's just so irreverent and just dark humor. It's not
Yeah.
stylistically, it doesn't line up with me right now.
Hmm.
That's just not how my voice is. But he definitely was like the catalyst to make me think that it's an art form that I could pursue.
Right.
Um, I think I really enjoy Rory Scovel's playfulness.
Hmm.
He's a very absurd comedian that's very, very fun. It's also, just for me, it's very fun to be that silly and playful. And then 2 seconds later, I'm screaming about something. Like it's just a fun
Yeah.
ebb and flow,
Yeah.
like that juxtaposition. Who else? Roy Wood Jr. I think he is so eloquent at like discussing potentially volatile subjects about like societal issues, race issues,
Yeah.
class issues, but presented in a very empathetic way where like he air tests it so that it works in front of the people it's about. And I
I
think
see.
that is a sign of a very, very proficient comedian.
Hmm.
Who else? Michelle Wolf, she's just a killer.
Yeah, yeah.
Really like her stuff. I'm trying to think. Yeah, those are kind of the main ones. And oh, Chad Daniels, he's a menace. Are these names ringing a bell?
Yeah, a couple are. But I was going to ask you,
Okay.
like, because obviously, I think the American comedy scene is huge, right? There's a lot of very, very good standard. And but in the UK, and well, not so much Europe because the French aren't very funny, and I don't speak all the languages. But in the UK, there doesn't seem to be as many comedians as there are in the States. Obviously, on ratio, obviously. But is there any like UK comedians that take your fancy, or
Um,
anyone you
Trying to
know of?
think. Not off the top of my head, because it is very much like it only I'm an American, so I don't care about the world. I mean, that is unfortunately kind of we're not
Yeah,
told anything. They keep us dumb and well armed. It's there's it's also like it's a smaller market, so there's not as many. And for the most part, like a lot of UK, unless they're like
yeah,
top echelon,
yeah.
like a Jimmy Carr or
Mm.
whatever, or
Ricky
a
Gervais or
Ricky
something.
Gervais, yeah,
Mm.
like those are the only people that show up, and like
Mm.
they're also so popular because they cast a very broad net, and so like not to no shade to any of your UK audience, but it's just like I don't know that many,
Sure.
and if
Yeah.
I visited and spent some time, I'm sure I would run into dozens and dozens and dozens of comics that I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what's up. But it's like
Sure.
in the same way that like asking like, hey, what's good metal music or what are good bands, and you're like, well, there's the three that you know of, but there's so many bands that have like that are hustling right now and not established that are really
Yeah.
killing it, and you're like,
Of
well, I don't
course.
know who they are.
Of course. Of course. What about film? What about funny film? Do you like movies? What's the funniest film in your opinion? Because I think the world's is there's not good comedy films anymore like they used to be. I mean the was it the Farrelly brothers did a good job with like Mary and Kingpin and things like that. But what do you think's funny recently or ever?
Not a lot of things are funny recently,
No,
at
I
least
agree.
with film. It's
Why is that? Why
studio.
why can't they create funny films anymore? I don't know what the problem is with that.
Um,
Is it because we've seen
it's
everything on Instagram? Have we seen all the funny things in the world? And it can't be any funnier than real life.
No, I think it's because everyone like I think it's because studios and companies don't want to make gambles. They
Mm,
want a proven IP,
mm.
and they want to screen test everything. They want to like, what's it where you have a group of people and then they get feedback and then they let that affect the art.
Right.
And they don't let artists make art. They just have people um they have non-creative people dictate what should be created
Hmm.
to appease shareholders. So
Yeah.
that's why I think a lot of movies and TV shows and all kinds of other things have depreciated in quality. Also, a direct byproduct of the pandemic that like
Sure.
broke the
Of
momentum,
course.
and
Yeah.
everyone had to consolidate to an extent. And I just don't think I don't think we've course corrected since then. Um, and also just think of the online backlash at anything,
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah. That's it.
Oh,
Well, like,
there's a
look at the
black.
Joker 2 film. That's meant to be crap, apparently.
Yeah, but also like I haven't seen it. I saw the first one. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Same.
watch the sequel at some point,
Make my
and
own opinion.
I'm
Mm.
looking forward to not liking it because at least someone tried to do a thing.
Yeah. 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 Have you ever
Um,
wanted to get involved in anything to do with film or TV, whether it's script or whether it's being in it or anything like that?
oh, I would love to, but I mean, I only have so much bandwidth, and I'm still trying to make
Mm.
this career just a stand up
Sure.
career pop off. And
Yeah.
if I can do that, then and if something presents itself, like yeah, but like the stage is my main
Yeah.
is my main skill set. It's the main thing
Sure.
I strive to be on because do jokes, get the dopamine, record it, upload the clip, might get new fans
Sure.
that way. Rinse, regret, repeat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to circle back, films. Probably my all-time favorite comedy film is Hot Fuzz.
Yeah. 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 English. Well,
Yeah,
good. Good. English
yeah,
get a nod there. That's good. That's good.
yeah. I didn't want to sound like
So
I wasn't a fan.
it's a great film. So
Oh,
back
it's the
to
best.
back to music. Heaviest stink face riff in your opinion?
Oh, geez. I mean, Bleed by Meshuggah, I is just like an
Yeah.
easy, like right there. Just the first time I heard that, I was like, oh, oh. Um, and that's also it's hard questions, man. Every time I do any sort of interview, everyone's like, "All right, now you're an authority. Let's know all your things." I was like, "I didn't do my research." Uh,
Yeah.
trying to think. I know some The Haunted. I remember there was some riffs from The Haunted that
Yeah.
really got me going off of Revolver.
Yeah.
Really, really like that album. Between the Buried and Me, like the crescendo of White Walls off of Colors, like that,
Mhm.
that makes me want to punch concrete. And I know, and I don't have healthcare, so that's a bad idea, but it makes me want to
God.
do it.
The States. The States. Well, that brings me
Yeah, man.
perfect to that, actually. Thinking of the States, let's talk about it. There's a big thing happening in a few weeks' time. The world is watching. What's going to happen, Luke?
Chaos.
You
Like
think
that's
so?
what's going to happen. Yeah, yeah. There's going to be a lot of divisiveness that has already, been laying the groundwork for that for forever.
Yeah.
Um, I It bums me out, man. It bums me out. I definitely have my preferred wing of the duopoly, but I don't like how much Americans hate Americans.
Mm, that's right.
And I see that as a just a direct byproduct of it's the internet, but it's also like the internet is like the door being opened, and also all of our politics making it so that money matters more and more and more, and the voice of the actual citizens matter less and less and less.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, man. I'm sure there's going to be some political violence.
You think so? You think it'll go that far?
Yeah, I mean, I
How palpable is it? I mean, with regards to neighbors, friends, family, how divisive is it? Is it literally like that? Is it blue, red, and that's it?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of have my circle is pretty blue. And it's hard like when I'm on the road, I go to red places, but it's really hard to have conversations. And I wouldn't say it's hard to have conversation. I This is sort of in my act at this point, and I want to expand on it, but it's just like we don't have a shared reality.
Mm,
Like so I think Team Red is wrong. Just
hmm.
full stop.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Hmm.
For a variety of reasons. But when I discuss issues with someone, their point of reference is so much different than mine. And I know I'm in my own little bubble, and I definitely have biases, and I've digested plenty of propaganda, but I like to think that I've also dipped out and tried to acquire other points of references
Sure.
so that I can then filter out what is hyperbole and what is not.
Hmm.
But when I interact with some people, it is so hard to find like where is the baseline that we can agree and then build a reality from there.
Yeah.
And this is not funny. I would love to make it funny, but I really see this as like this election and everything that surrounds the 45th president feels like it is a focal point for anyone who wants America to not succeed. And
Mm.
you just charge him up, and then he just causes the division because America's not been, for sure. We have our issues, and this has been percolating for a while. But he is the totem that is leading the charge,
Yeah.
and I would love to not have him be able to do that sort of thing anymore.
Well, I tell you, so we're gonna have the rest of the world's got their popcorn for the 6th, 7th, 8th, and probably the 9th, 10th of November when there'll be another charge on Capitol Hill or something. I mean, it's just what's gonna happen
Yeah.
next?
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, he's also been doing plenty of weird things in states to try to.
Yeah.
It's just the level of projection that happens in right wing media is staggering. Where they're like, "Hey, you're cheating," and you're like, "You guys are literally doing the thing." It's the same as like a Republican senator being like, "Gay people are bad," and then he's being butt fucked by a sex worker in a bathroom stall while doing
Yeah.
meth, and you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Hey,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
calls
Yeah.
coming from inside the house."
Yeah. 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 Right.
Like, uh, yeah,
Ugh,
man, it's gonna be wild, and it's a bummer, and
you know, it's
I
tight.
really hope,
It's tight,
yeah,
man. 47,
but it's also like
47, something like that. It's tight.
it's
Ridiculously tight.
but is it? I don't know. Like, I know when I
Yeah.
drive through the more rural parts of Pennsylvania, like it's a lot of Trump signs.
Mm,
And
mm,
um it's just it bums me out, but it's also like, yeah, man, you guys have been told only the good things and told only bad things about your
mm.
fellow Americans. That's the thing that really annoys me is that I've never been a fan of like teams growing up. It's just never scratched my itch, like having to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I was like,
Sure.
I'd rather not.
Yeah.
This is brainwashing stuff.
Sure.
But it's like I used to really roll my eyes when people would be like, you know what, united we stand, divided we fall. And it was always a very Republican talking point. They have stopped saying that. And I know
That's
like
interesting.
political parties shift, but it's like,
Mm,
yeah, man, like we have to get along to exist in this capacity. And that's why I do legitimately just go, here's my little conspiracy theory is that it's just like, yeah, man, this only like if you look at every action that old Donnie has taken and seen it through the lens of does this help or hinder Vladimir?
mm. Well, that's
It
it.
all it all helps him, and it
That is
all
it.
helps the
That
outside
is
forces.
it. You've nailed it, mate. That's exactly it. That is exactly it. And obviously, it's on my doorstep more than yours right now.
Yeah,
You know. So,
well, yeah.
okay, let's
It's
let's move. I've got some funny random questions, mate. If you can take this, okay.
let's
Here we go.
palate cleanse.
Let's see how you go with these. If you could know the absolute and total truth to one question, what question would you ask?
Oh, what does consciousness persist after death?
Okay.
I,
Okay. Yeah. Good one. Good one. Okay. What?
and
Go on. Yeah. Go on.
and it would need to be provable to everyone.
Yeah. Of
It needs to
course.
be like,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
this is answered. Let's move on to the next
Move
thing.
on. Exactly. I like that one. So, what quote or saying do you think people love to say, but is actually complete bullshit?
Ooh,
There's so many. You go on things like LinkedIn, it's all that bullshit business talk. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can't even think of any now, but it's horrible. All that crap.
Well, I mean, the first one pops to mind is the like love the sin or hate the sin.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah,
silly one where you're like,
yeah.
oh, you just want to be a bigot and not feel bad about it. Trying to think of like because
It's
I
that horrible one. Is
usually
it eat, love, pray? Is that
yeah,
one?
yeah,
Oh God, sick.
yeah. Oh, so you're just like, going like, what are idioms that annoy you? No, it's the live, laugh, love.
No,
That's
live, laugh,
one.
love. That's it. Live, laugh, love. That's another
But
one. Yeah,
which is also it's annoying because it like makes you roll your eyes. You're like, but if that's how you live a life, it's a good life.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're like, ugh,
Can't
that's
argue.
so stupid. The thing that is a
Yeah,
goal, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. No, it's good. Here's another question. Your most unpopular musical opinion, Luke.
Oh, one that okay. If we're just saying things that make people mad,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
I
but you've got to have it's your you've got to believe in that
yeah,
opinion. It's your opinion, man.
yeah. I don't really like Slayer, and
No,
I never have.
I had that
I've
I had that last week from a band in Sweden said the same thing.
well, it's like I see the appeal, but also like it's kind of it bores me a little bit. And also like literally the singer is singing about God hating everyone and he's
And he's a
Catholic. And I'm
I
like,
know that's the mad thing, and that's what I like about Kerry King's new album. If you've heard it, now that's a
yeah.
good album, and it's all quite very anti-religion, which is quite good because obviously like two pokes in the eye for Tom Araya. But no, I've heard that before, Slayer. I know what you mean. It's a bit contradictory.
Yeah, and it's also it's when someone is so thoroughly elevated where you're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
all
yeah,
right, you guys. Like I've seen them several times and I'm like, it's a
yeah.
good show, but
Oh yeah,
it's a theme that I kind of go back to is that like if the dopamine's not there, the dopamine's not there. Like I can't be a different person to enjoy a thing.
sure,
Sorry.
sure, sure, sure. Next question: what's the most used emoji in your phone?
Oh,
Not the laughy
the
face, surely.
no. It's the one where the guy's going,
Oh, that was.
yeah, yeah, because
Can
it's
you
my
explain
face.
that? Because this is for radio.
Oh, it's the like the weird kind of like I see it as like a weird grin.
Yeah, it's like all
But it
teeth.
is like yeah, it's all teeth. It's
Yeah,
just
like
and I really wish I
kind
could
of thing. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, and I usually do like a this, I
horns.
go, huh?
Yeah,
Which is with
I like it.
the little devil horns on one side and a thumbs up on the other with my weird grinning face in the middle.
I love it. I love it. So let's see which way you go with this one. Which has the best metal, Europe or the USA?
Ooh, because you guys got some bands over there that I definitely dig. I think we just have a bigger pool to draw from. So I think it would have to be the US just from just strictly numbers. What a nice answer I just gave.
Well, it's a very, very diplomatic, but I would
Yeah,
say one
yeah.
thing with my problem is with some American, like the festivals that you have, it's so multi-genre. You'll have like Slipknot playing with Dua Lipa or, that kind of thing. It's just so
Yeah.
weird that you have all these multi-genre festivals. Do you have a lot of rock and metal festivals like Rocklahoma and things like that? Don't you have like,
There's a decent amount. I mean, I'm so busy just trying
yeah,
to
you don't, yeah,
do my own thing, so I don't go as much as I definitely used to in my younger years. But like, yeah, I think the multi-genre thing's a little bit interesting, and I think that's just it's the
yeah,
shareholders. Like
sure.
we gotta cast as big of a net as possible to bring
Yeah,
everyone
bring
in.
as
But I
many
also think
in.
that's cool because you get people that are a fan of this thing, and then they see another, they
Yeah,
go and see Slipknot live and go,
yeah,
oh, when I heard that song, when they hear a song on the radio or a friend play a song a week later, they're like, oh, like this,
triggered.
I
Yeah.
enjoy this more because I know what it's tied to.
I understand it. I understand what you're saying. So, for the American listeners, what shows have you got coming up that you can advertise now that you can tell us about?
I do stuff. I'm living in Pittsburgh. I'll be here through spring. I'm going back to Washington. I have some stuff in Seattle and Tacoma, Bellingham, Burien. What else? I'm planning a kind of a full North American tour next year. Just kind of working on the logistics. That'll be in
Awesome.
spring. So I don't have a lot of stuff to announce now,
Yeah, sure.
but I have a lot of things that are coming down the pipeline and getting solidified.
Where can they follow you on? How can they get hold of you to see where you are?
My website, my socials, everything is just Luke Severeid, Lukesevereid.
Cool. Nice one, mate. Now, I've got to bookend this interview with two tracks, one at the beginning, one at the end. What am I playing at the start? What am I completing this interview with?
I think as an outro, fucking Gojira's Asiya,
Yeah.
like from
Nice.
the
For the
Olympics. I
Olympics. Nice.
fucking oh yeah, dude. Let's cut off rich
Awesome.
people's heads.
Yeah.
Um and then because it's really been the scratching an itch. I also that's the thing too is that you have to like, all right, I need to come out with a banger.
Mm.
Um, let's see here. Map change. What is the name of the?
Because you're a Mastodon fan, right? I've seen you on with the t-shirt.
Yeah, dude, fucking Blood and Thunder is just kind of a go-to. I
Right.
love. Yeah, yeah. We Blood and Thunder is a safe bet because that
To
also is
start
like,
with.
yeah, Blood and Thunder to start and then to close out with Asaya from Gojira.
Nice.
Also, yeah, that's also stylistically both of those
Yeah.
bands are like close
Nice.
to each
Nice,
other.
man.
Yeah, that works.
Any thought of coming to, would you like to come over to Europe and perform?
No, I hate people that look like my ancestors. No, no, I would love to. It's the logistics, it's all the
Mm.
stuff. I don't know, immigration or green card or whatever your version of that is.
Yeah.
But I know I have a lot of UK fans. I have a lot of people in Germany that want me to come out. I would love to. It's just just figuring out
It
how to
can't be
do it
that
because
difficult. You haven't got to logistically bring the Ramstein stage with you, have you? I mean, it's literally just yourself, right?
yes, but also it
The
is just
paperwork.
me. It
Yeah.
is just me. I'm at this stage of my career. I'm unrepresented. I have
Yeah.
no manager. It's just me
Yeah. Of
doing
course.
the
You've got to sort it out.
interviews.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like, hey man, do you want to learn how to get to Europe? And I'm like,
Yeah.
maybe, but it's
Yeah.
easier for me to line up a show in Chicago.
Sure. Sure. I understand. It's here waiting for you, mate. Well, listen, Luke, thanks so much for joining me. Great chat. So easy to talk to you. I really appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.